There's an island, lost to time, found in the 16th century by a French explorer named Caprona. He documented this island, claiming that there were large lizard-like creatures and large birds that roared and soared the skies. But when he returned to the mainland, the scientists who reviewed his documents claimed that they were fraudulent, and there's no evidence to suggest that they were large lizard-like creatures. But, however, in the 22nd century, the island, which was named Caprona, was refound, and the large lizard-like creatures that Caprona documented were prehistoric creatures lost to time. They were dinosaurs. This particular spot on Caprona, we are looking at a giant lake, which attracts guests and visitors from around the island. The waters provide nutrients and sustenance to all that need it, especially these dinosaurs right here. These are Spinosaurus titanus, and this is a male one named Nile, and his mate Sahara. Their son Tut is right now asleep. They are called Spinosaurus titanus because they've better evolved to fight dinosaurs that they've never encountered in real life, like Giganotosaurus or Tyrannosaurus. These particular Spinosaurus titanus haven't eaten in days, and a new herd has migrated here a few meters away, and it seems like that Nile might be on the hunt. He walks towards the herd, thundering footsteps. He looks at the herd and tries to spot a suitable prey item. He spots an injured, limping Pachyrhinosaurus and decides that it's best for him to try and attack it later, because all the other herd members might all group up and attack. So they must wait out. Atop a cliff, watching the herd, is another large predator. It is a female Giganotosaurus carolini. She is named Persephone. She has a rare disease that fuses her back together, so she has to stay upright without hunching over. This is very bad for hunting predators. She is a mother. Her son Carnage is over there. She has watched and waited for a member of the herd to wander off too far. She has not eaten in days. Sometimes, when the lighting is just right, you can see her ribs poking out of her stomach. I guess he knows not to mess with it. That Therizinosaurus watches over the herd. She does not want to mess with the claws of the Therizinosaurus, so she must wait it out, and wait. Top of the but she is hungry, and sometimes you might have to risk it and take one of the members down. Meanwhile, down the cliff, we see that a Velociraptor titanus seems to have killed a large male Cryolophosaurus. Looks like that the Velociraptor previously was starving before, and is now eating ferociously. But she seems to be pushing it away, possibly to her nest to eat another day. However, the Cryolophosaurus is too heavy, and she is too weak to push it. But she keeps trying even though it's futile to keep trying. Keeps rolling back down at her. She growls angrily. He is oblivious to the predator a few meters away. This is Tyrannus, a large male Tyrannosaurus Rex who rules the side of the valley. He has not eaten in days and is willing to fight a velociraptor for food. He tries to scare He still tries to scare it, even though it does not seem to be working. The velociraptor has a strong will, but is pretty stupid for not heeding the warnings of a large male Tyrannosaurus behind her. The velociraptor roars back angrily and still tries to keep pushing her meal away. But it's still too heavy. No matter how hard she tries, it's still too heavy. So Tyrannus attacks her and snaps her neck. With now 2 kills and two corpses, he eats ferociously. He has not eaten in days, like I said earlier. And 2 kills. He starts to drag them away towards his nest a few meters away to eat another day. Meanwhile, back at the herd, we see that they are new here, like I said earlier. They have migrated here from another side of Caprona. They are very curious to their new surroundings, especially the Malawisaurus. He looks around in awe, but is still under the supervision of the Therizinosaurus. But, however, the Malawisaurus seems to be wandering too far and too close to a predator, an Acrocanthosaurus. Like many creatures on Caprona, he has not eaten in days and weeks, but is still wary of the Therizinosaurus, but he might attack without hesitation, and he does so, knocking over the Malawisaurus with might and force. The herd members are confused and frightened. The Dacenturus waves his large spikes around to try and scare off, but the Acrocanthosaurus tries to bite him, but gets a spike embedded into his gum, which hurts really bad. He wanders off and tumbles on a rock, hitting his head, breaking his back, and allowing the Therizinosaurus to kill it, and mauling it to death, and blood starts to splatter on the camera. With the Acrocanthosaurus dying, the Therizinosaurus finally kills it. Blood starts to drip down the camera, but it is quickly cleaned off. Meanwhile, the second predator, the Herrerasaurus, watched the entire ordeal unfold, and is much smarter than the Acrocanthosaurus by a lot. He knows not to mess with the Therizinosaurus, but is still hungry. He starts to look at the prey items and starts to slowly descend down the rock. he has made a decision finally, and is going to get the corpse of the Acrocanthosaurus. Dacenturus tries to scare it off, but he is not after any of the herd, but is instead after the corpse of the Acrocanthosaurus. He finally eats the Acrocanthosaurus off camera. The Therizinosaurus tries to help the Malawisaurus up, but instead knocks down the Dacenturus. But then he tries to help it get up as well, but is futile. And eventually, the herbivores get up by themselves and start to walk away with little injury. Back at the Spinosaurus nest, Nile decides to try and fish for food. Via the nearby lake. He climbs up a rock and decides to look for a place to fish. He hears animals splashing. He sticks his head in the water and tries to grab the fish, but it's too slippery because his teeth are made for ripping flesh, not gripping slippery fish anymore. Tries again, but it's futile. So instead, he walks back to his family. When he returns to the nest, he looks at his son, Tut, who's been asleep a lot lately. This time for several hours. He thinks it's because they haven't eaten in days, so he spies at the herd again. Without any options, he looks around again. No other herbivores are in sight. Except, of course, this Diabloceratops. It seems like this Diabloceratops has wandered too far and too close to the Spinosaurus nest. So without any hesitation, Nile sneaks up and attacks. The Diabloceratops is powerless. With it dead, the Spinosaurus's food problems are solved for several days, and the Diabloceratops's corpse is pulled towards the nest. Atop the cliff once more, Persephone watched every ordeal unfold, thinking that it is time for her to start to eat. She looks around for prey items and motions to her child to stay on top of the cliff. She slowly makes her way down and notices something. a sleeping Pachyrhinosaurus. She attacks it. It wakes up and tries to shake her off. But it is futile to struggle against Persephone. She eventually overpowers it. And it finally dies. She pulls it towards her and starts eating. She stands up and roars victoriously.